Welcome back, everyone, to this third episode of my series. I'm going to have to go back and edit probably some of these titles, but my creation series, episode three. We talked a little bit last time about story and characterization, where you get your characters from, et cetera, et cetera. So in this episode, we're going to talk about characters. Now, this story has four characters in it. Uh, in between these episodes, I've been thinking about it. It's been brewing in my head, so to speak. And so we've got Viet Loader, right? And we talked about him. We talked about Selena. Let me see what we wrote here. Solana. Can't quite remember. So, yeah, Solana, S-E-L. Inverted those, didn't I? Solana, okay? And then the third one is Mordoth. And then the fourth one um, is actually going to be a servant, and we're going to come up with Pater. Yeah, we said Pater. Okay, so so there's several different ways that we can get the description of these characters. So you use whatever tools you have. It's just like anything else. If you have a deficiency, everybody has blind spots, and there's certain things I can't do in my writing that other people excel at. But a lot of people can't get the details from their imagination. They know a general idea of what they want things to look like, but they can't get the details, right? So one of the tricks that people use is they'll just look up um, a generalization. Uh, 5'6", dark-haired man, Jewish descent, and they'll Google that and click on images, and they'll just find a random image of somebody that looks similar to what they want, and then they'll describe from that picture. Um, some people will make a character based on an amalgamation of different characteristics from people physically. Like, oh, I took my girlfriend's nose and my ex-wife's hair and this girl that checked me out at the shopping center yesterday, her body type, and kind of amalgamate them together. And they do the same thing with personalities as well. I do that sometimes because I use a lot of my own quirks and different personality traits that I have combined with people I know very, very well, or stereotypical ones like um, a type A personality would act a certain way, etc. And we'll get to the personality in a bit, but those are the thing. That's the most important thing. Number one, you want to get a description you like and stick to it. You don't want somebody's eyes to be blue at the beginning of your novel or story and they be brown at the end. We want to be consistent. So that picture thing really helps. If you ever forget, you can go back and look at the picture. Or as I was saying in the last episode, a character sheet, like a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet. All that stuff can be detailed in there. You can make it up yourself. Now, one of the other things I discussed is that this program Script Studio, and I don't have a full version of it because it is very expensive for just a program that helps you keep things straight, which I can technically build in Excel. But one of the things it has is this character spotlight. So you can go through and fill out everything that it asks, right? And then you can go to we'll just hit new, right? And then we'll go to the bio. You can write out a short biography to get your character. Baseline, because you have to have a baseline to get an arc, right? Then you describe the arc. And this is something, this in particular, right here, is something that Hollywood has been failing at for the last 10 years, at least. Because if you don't have an arc, you have a wooden, flat character. And unfortunately, a lot of these characters that we're getting, especially in Star Wars, were perfectly flat characters that did not have a real arc. They have to have a significant emotional, motivational change in their circumstance. They're headed one way, and their arc changes them into a different person, whether that's a better change or a worse change. That's what has to happen. Um, so that's what that arc is for. Any side notes that you might need. And then they have what is called an interview, right? This helps people get their lines in order, right? So you just go in and you answer all these different questions, right? Who are they have relationships with? What other characters, et cetera, et cetera. And then how do they talk? Isolated dialogue, accents, dialectics. Do they ramble? Do they? Stephen King has a really good. If you listen, really listen to his, he throws almost stream of consciousness ramblings and descriptions into his dialogue. You know, if you listen to the Dark or read the Dark Tower series or listen to going back to characters and how they're usually mine are typically based on portions of myself. There's a scene, and I hope I don't spoil this for anybody, in I believe it is Song of Susanna, where he actually put himself in the story. And during the description, it Roland was a older, better looking version of Stephen King. That there was a resemblance there, like an idealized version of himself. And a lot of writers do that. That's why he put that in there like that. So when creating a character's personality, I draw upon people, celebrities that are out there all the time. If you want to use that, you need an example or you need to draw upon that, and it's got to be significantly different in each character because everybody's different, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't feel right. You got a bunch of wooden characters that all act the same way, and there's no tension, there's no struggle between in their relationships, and you really want that in a story. The story arc is one thing, the character arc is another thing for your characters, and then at the same time, you want to struggle between the characters, where it's the protagonist, a secondary or tertiary character, or the protagonist and the antagonist, or the antagonist and their kind of little group of secondary and tertiary characters. So you want the struggle in there, and that's what breeds a very deep, meaningful story for people. Is that not only are they struggling with whatever their story arc is going to be, they're also struggling with themselves and with the characters around them and their world. So you've got to make sure that's all in balance. And I'm talking about a linear story, not a character study. Character study is different. It's all about the character's personal struggle. And in some of those instances, the secondary and tertiary characters are like pale shadows of what they really would be in real life. For example, the Joker did this just this past year, where his struggle was with himself, and everybody else could have been an imagined person in his own head, or it may not have been. You, that's the brilliance of that movie, is that you can't know 100% whether it's one or the other. Now, I know the directors come out and said a few things, but I try not to listen to that because I want to build my own story and study in my head with the information that the filmmaker gave us. So I I researched that kind of personality. I really easy way to do this is take personality tests online, and then you can get kind of a timeline and sequence on things that need to be worked out, etc. So one of the other thing that the last thing I'm going to talk about in characterization is that you must write notes first, just like we saw with that script studio program. And but you want to write notes like this, and then you want the character's description to be as close as you want it to be as you think it's going to be in the story. So what really matters about this is the point of view that the description is being given from. Okay, so when we first start out with Viet Loader, he's by himself, right? And so, oop, I forgot a character. So there's five. The farmer, which we don't know anything about right now, right? Correct? So, um, my idea is he's in the middle of nowhere on a road. All he sees is a castle, and there is a farmer coming up behind him on a cart and or a rickety little wagon from the market or whatever. So, um, getting back to what I was saying is that the the initial description of it loader has to be done subtly because you're an omni you may be an omniscient third person, right? As you're telling the story. If you choose to go that way. I'm going to choose to go that way. Or you are um, an omniscient third person from a specific character's point of view. So it's not really omniscient, it's uh, limited third person, right? Third person limited, that's what it's called. I had to reach way back. I haven't ever really explained this out loud before. Uh, um, People that I'm around normally don't really care about this. They just want a good story. So, um, in this, I think what's going to happen because we're going to follow Loader on his journey, correct? So, what we're going to do is his description is going to be like when he first wakes up, the dark-haired, well-dressed man found himself waking in the middle of nowhere. So right then we get a dark-haired man, very well dressed, and he's going to complain and things. So we just subtly throw in description. You don't want to give too much. That's the other thing. Rule number two is you do not give too much description to your reader. The reader needs to see this person in their head. The reason I say that, well, two reasons I say that. The real reason for that is if you spoon feed a description of a character every time you have a new character, your reader's going to get bored and walk away. They're not going to turn the page. The second reason I say that is you make it vague enough to where everybody has an idea as to what you want the character to look like. Because this is not a visual medium. This is an imaginary medium. That's the great thing about books is that's if you read books, it help, especially from a very early age. It forms your mind, makes your mind more creative and your imagination bloom because you're forcing it to take these words you're reading and mold a character around that. That's and the second reason, which is kind of a funny reason, is if we didn't do it this way, there wouldn't be endless debates among our readers as to who would play what character. And I love those debates. I used to, especially when I was in book clubs, we would read a book, or just me and my friends would conspire to go get the same book before we even really knew what book clubs were and discuss them at lunch at school while we were playing Dungeons and Dragons because we played Dungeons and Dragons at lunch. I'm talking fifth, sixth grade. Anyway, so when we start out, because we're going from third person, In Viet Loader's case, we can't come out and just say this is what he looks like. Number one, there's no mirror, and that's lazy anyway to say he looks in the mirror. Some people have pulled it off very well, but it's really not a good idea to try and do something like that. I actually read either a book or a story once where a person described the way he looked. Now, this character was a person who shined. It was an African American person who shined men's shoes at at the airport, and it was a brilliant mirror play because he described him the way he looked in the reflection of the shoes, in order to get us that vague. Because if you've ever looked at a very polished shoe, you see yourself in them, but it's a very melted and blurry view of yourself, so it's still vague. Now, all the other characters, the farmer, Solana, Mordoth, and Pater, are all from Viet Loader's going to view them. And we can get a little bit more detailed with their description because he's physically looking at them and making judgments. And that's one of the things Viet Loader is going to be good at, is making judgments. So these are the characters. Um, in the next episode, what we'll do is we'll go over how I fleshed out these characters, and then because I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me type, that would be ridiculous. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do this over the course of the next day or two, in between my streaming of Star Wars, The Old Republic, or any of the other content I put up. This is one of the more important series I believe on my channel. The viewers, you guys may not think so, but this is something that I wish I had growing up. That this information that I could get to that said, okay, this is how I can tell a story, and I'm trying to give as many options for each different task as possible, so that I honestly would have loved for us to have the old um, apprentice system where a writer storyteller could be picked up by an accomplished novelist storyteller, and taught the practical way to go about it, not, oh, worrying about the mechanics of language. Because once you're past the fifth or sixth grade, if you don't have the language mechanics down, you're not going to get them down. And the other thing is that we have so many tools now, Grammarly, spell check, grammar check, and Grammarly is a great product, by the way, that we're not going to get the details of the language, the language arts part done. We're not going to have to diagram our sentences or anything, and nobody wants us to. Popular fiction writers don't have to follow the same rules as other types of media do. So, that being said, I'll get this done, and then when we come back, um, go. We're going to do a point by point story arc for the overall story, and possibly in that same episode we'll do, because ultimately this story is going to be about Viet Loader and what he becomes and how he gets there. That's the sub arc, that character. None of our other characters are going to change that much in the meantime. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give a like. And as I said, if you have ideas as to what you think this story should go or way it should go based on these 3 episodes, leave a comment. If you think I'm leading you down the false path, leave a comment. Your comments are what make me better at my job. So again, I appreciate you watching, and you have a great day. Hey, this is StoryMan-Jack. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody who tunes in, and look forward to seeing you next time. Please, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you're the creator and writer of your own story. Make it a great one. Thank you.